All right, so get ready because today we are going deep on this idea of first principles thinking.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think can be really helpful for anyone who's looking to kind of, break out of those ruts, solve problems in a new way, come up with innovative solutions.
Absolutely.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from a document called First Principles Thinking.pdf as we kind of, go on this little deep dive together.
Sounds good.
So to kind of kick things off, what is it about this first principles thinking that makes it so powerful, so useful?
It's really all about questioning assumptions.
Okay.
A lot of times we just kind of go through life accepting the way things are without really stopping to think, like, why are they that way?
Right, yeah. We kind of get into those routines, those habits, and we don't challenge those assumptions that we've maybe picked up along the way.
Exactly.
So we're putting on our detective hats then.
Yeah, exactly.
But what does it actually look like to kind of break things down to those fundamental truths?
So imagine you're trying to, let's say, improve a product.
Right.
But instead of just, tweaking existing features, you really take a step back and ask yourself, what is this product's core purpose?
Yeah.
What need is it addressing? And maybe even more importantly, are there totally different ways that we could achieve the same outcome?
So it's kind of like saying, okay, forget what we know about cars.
That's right.
If we wanted to get from point A to point B,
Yeah.
is there a different way to do it that doesn't involve an engine at all? Is that kind of how we end up with, electric vehicles and things like that?
Exactly.
Right.
By challenging that assumption that you need a combustion engine,
Yeah.
you open up a whole world of possibilities, and that's really what first principles thinking is all about.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not just tinkering around the edges. We're really going down to the foundation
Yeah.
and seeing if we can rebuild something completely different, something better.
Exactly. And sometimes you find those really breakthrough ideas by going all the way back to the beginning.
So is there a real world example that you can think of where someone has successfully used this approach?
Yeah, I think a classic example is Elon Musk and SpaceX.
Okay.
So he wanted to make space travel more affordable.
Right.
But instead of just accepting, the astronomical costs that are associated with traditional rockets, he broke the problem down to its core.
Okay.
He asked, what is a rocket, fundamentally? What is it supposed to do? It's a vehicle
Right.
to transport mass from one point in space to another.
It's okay.
And then he went even deeper. What are the raw materials that are needed? How can we optimize those materials? How can we optimize the manufacturing process?
So he's basically saying, let's forget everything we think we know about rockets and start from scratch.
Exactly.
Okay, and did that work?
It totally did.
Boy.
By questioning, those fundamental assumptions about rocket design, he's found ways to make them cheaper, more efficient, and, it's really revolutionizing the space industry.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and, this isn't just for rocket science or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can use this for personal goals, business challenges, even just understanding complex issues in the world around us.
So, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. It can lead to these incredible breakthroughs.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do it? Where do we even begin?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds kind of abstract, right?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So the document highlights a few key techniques.
Okay.
One of them is, using the Socratic method,
Okay.
which is basically asking yourself a series of questions to kind of challenge those assumptions, get to the root of those beliefs that we hold.
Right. So it's like a mental cross-examination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting to the heart of why we believe what we believe.
Okay. Interesting.
Another technique is to use thought experiments.
Okay.
So imagine you're starting from scratch.
Hmm.
If you had to rebuild this, the system, this product, this idea from the ground up, how would you do it?
Oh, I like that.
What are those absolutely essential elements?
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button and then seeing what comes to mind first.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the Socratic method, we've got these thought experiments.
Yeah.
Does the document mention anything else that can help us kind of get to those first principles?
Yeah, it talks about using a logical framework.
Okay.
So, first you define the problem you're trying to solve.
Right.
And then you identify the key variables, the key assumptions at play.
Okay.
And then you kind of work backward from the desired outcome, and you kind of systematically examine each step along the way.
Okay.
Questioning, is this truly necessary? Is there a more efficient path?
So it really is a shift in mindset.
Yeah.
But it seems like the payoff could be huge.
It is challenging, but I think the process itself is rewarding.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's making me think that this could really be a game changer for, anyone who just wants to approach life with more clarity, more purpose.
Yeah, definitely.
But, sometimes it is easier to just go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
Why should we put in the extra effort to think from first principles?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
It does require effort, but the payoff can be immense.
Okay.
Because it allows you to escape that trap of just copying what other people have done before.
Right.
You can create truly original solutions. You can really push the boundaries of what's possible.
So instead of just iterating on existing ideas, you're actually like creating something new from scratch.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that comes from a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
Are there any downsides, though? Are there any potential pitfalls to watch out for?
Of course. Yeah, there are. I mean, like any tool, first principles thinking can be misused.
Okay, so how do we make sure we're not, like, going too far down the rabbit hole?
Right. So one thing is you can oversimplify things.
Okay.
You break things down to their most basic elements, and you miss some of the nuances, the complexities of the real world.
All right, so we need to find that balance.
Yeah.
Between getting to the root, but also recognizing that, the world is a messy place.
Exactly.
Okay.
It can be really time-consuming.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially when you're dealing with, really complex issues.
Right.
So it takes patience, it takes a willingness to, dig into research and analysis.
So you're saying there's no, quick fix here.
No, definitely not.
But it's more about that long-term, really getting to the heart of things.
Exactly.
Now, the document does mention some pretty compelling benefits of this mindset.
Yeah.
So in your view, what are some of the biggest advantages?
I think one of the biggest is you become a much better problem solver.
Okay.
When you can break things down to those fundamental parts, you can get a clearer picture of what's really going on, and then you can come up with more effective solutions.
Okay, so it's almost like decluttering.
Yeah, exactly.
You're getting rid of all that noise.
Yeah.
All those distractions.
And you can focus.
So you can really focus.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
That clarity of thought then can lead to better decision making.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, both personally and professionally.
Okay.
When you understand those core principles, you're going to make choices that are better aligned with, your goals and values.
It also sounds like it encourages you to be more independent.
Yes, absolutely.
More self-reliant.
It encourages you to question authority.
Yeah.
To think critically about the information that's presented to you.
Right, because you're not just taking someone's word for it.
Exactly.
You're really digging in and forming your own conclusions.
Exactly. And I think that's so crucial, these days, especially with so much information coming at us from all directions.
Right. You have to be able to filter. You have to be able to discern.
Yeah. You have to be able to sift through that and figure out what's really true.
So it helps you develop that internal compass.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And I think this leads to another key benefit, which is a boost in creativity and innovation.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
So when you break free from those conventional ways of thinking, you challenge those assumptions, you unlock all these possibilities.
It's like you're rewiring your brain.
Exactly.
To see the world with a fresh perspective.
Yeah, you start seeing connections that maybe other people miss. You come up with truly original ideas.
Oh, wow. So this could lead to breakthroughs in any field.
Absolutely. Yeah, it could be science, it could be technology, it could be art, design, anything.
It's just a matter of applying those principles to that particular domain.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how this could be a real game changer for, anyone who wants to reach their full potential.
Yeah, definitely.
It's about having that mindset of continuous learning, continuous growth.
It's a lifelong journey of, discovery and exploration.
Okay. So we've talked about the benefits. We've talked about potential pitfalls. How do we start putting this into practice?
That's a great question.
Yeah. What are some tangible ways we can actually incorporate this into our everyday lives?
So let's start with decision making.
Okay, decision making.
We make tons of decisions every day, big and small.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big one.
So instead of just, going with your gut or following the crowd, first principles thinking encourages you to define those goals, identify your values, and then evaluate your options based on those fundamental principles.
So it's like creating a personal decision-making framework.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's rooted in what you truly believe in.
Okay, I like that.
So for example, let's say you're thinking about a career change.
Okay.
Instead of just chasing the highest salary or the fanciest title,
Right.
you would ask yourself, what kind of work is actually aligned with my passions and my values? What are the essential skills and experiences I need to succeed in this field?
Yeah.
Are there any like unconventional paths I could take to get there?
That's a great way to look at it. Because
Yeah.
instead of just reacting,
Yeah.
you're actually intentionally designing
Exactly.
your future based on what matters.
Yeah.
Okay, what about goal setting? Does first principles thinking apply there too?
Absolutely. You know, it's not just about setting those ambitious goals,
Right.
but understanding the why behind them
Okay.
and breaking them down into manageable steps.
Like reverse engineering your goals.
Exactly.
Yes.
So let's say your goal is to run a marathon.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of just, fixating on that finish line,
Right.
you would break it down. What are the fundamental elements of training for a marathon?
Yeah.
It's building endurance, increasing your mileage, proper nutrition, avoiding injury.
Right.
So you create a plan
Okay.
that addresses each of those principles step by step.
So it's like building a house, right?
Exactly.
You need that solid foundation.
Yeah.
You need a
You
blueprint
got it.
to make sure everything is structurally sound.
And you can apply that to any goal, personal, professional, creative.
Wow, this is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
I feel like I said, I feel like my brain is making all these new connections.
That's the beauty of it. It's
Yeah.
a continuous journey
It really
of growth and discovery.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating that sense of curiosity, challenging the status quo, and always seeking a deeper understanding.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
about potential pitfalls.
Okay.
You talked about, being aware of our own biases.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, we all have biases, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
These are like our preconceived notions or
Yeah.
prejudices that can kind of creep into our thinking
Yeah.
and lead us to make, faulty conclusions.
So how do we identify those biases?
It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but one thing you can do is just become more aware of your thoughts, your reactions.
Yeah.
So when you're, making a judgment or forming an opinion, just pause for a second and ask yourself, why do I believe this?
Right.
Is this based on evidence, or is this just like a preconceived notion that I have?
It's like holding up a mirror
Exactly.
to your own thought process.
Yeah,
Yeah, and really examining those things that we often don't even realize are there.
exactly. And another thing you can do is seek out diverse perspectives.
Ugh.
Talk to people who have different backgrounds,
Gotcha.
different beliefs, different experiences.
Right, so it's step outside that echo chamber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That can help challenge your assumptions,
Yeah,
help you see the world from different angles.
that's great advice.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to question the status quo.
Okay.
Just because something's been done a certain way
Right.
doesn't mean it's the best way or the most efficient way.
Okay, so challenge.
Yeah, be willing to shake things up a bit.
So it's all about constantly challenging those ingrained beliefs
Yeah.
and seeking out new information
Exactly.
to kind of refine your understanding.
It all comes back to critical thinking,
Oh, interesting.
which is really at the heart of this.
Yeah, because first principles thinking is basically a form of
Yeah.
really rigorous critical thinking.
Yeah, it's systematically analyzing that information, identifying those assumptions, evaluating the evidence,
Right.
and forming those logical conclusions.
Just like you're becoming a mental ninja,
Exactly.
slicing through all the BS to get to the truth.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just, master overnight. It's
Yeah.
a continuous process.
Practice.
Exactly.
But it sounds like it's well worth the effort.
I think so.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
As we start to wrap up this deep dive into first principles thinking, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
First principles thinking, it's a powerful tool. It can help you, unlock your potential, achieve those goals, and even make a difference in the world.
Right.
But it requires effort, it requires dedication, and it requires a willingness to challenge your own beliefs.
It's not a magic formula.
No.
It's a mindset, a way of approaching life
Exactly.
with intention, with that thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
And the more you use it, the more natural it becomes, the more rewarding it becomes.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like you're saying this isn't like a one-time thing.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's about, constantly cultivating that curiosity,
Mhm.
always seeking that deeper understanding.
Okay, I like that.
But, let's get back to those practical examples we were talking about earlier.
Let's get down to
Yeah.
the actual how-to.
Yeah, how do we actually use this in our everyday lives?
Exactly.
Well, think about, all those decisions we make, right?
Yeah, every day,
Yeah.
big and small.
Instead of just, trusting our gut or going along with what everybody else is doing.
Right.
First principles thinking encourages us to really think critically about what we're trying to achieve.
Okay.
And why.
So it's kind of like, are we creating a set of guidelines for ourselves?
Yeah, you can think of it that way.
Yeah, like a set of principles
Yeah.
that are going to help us make choices that are aligned with...
Yeah, your values, your goals.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, you're trying to decide whether to, take on a new project at work.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way.
Instead of just saying yes because it seems like, a good opportunity.
Right.
You would ask yourself, does this project align with my long-term goals?
Okay.
Will it help me develop the skills that I really want to be developing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that I'm truly passionate about?
I see. So I'm being much more intentional
Yeah,
in how I'm spending my time and energy.
It's about making sure those choices are really in your best interest.
Okay, that makes sense.
And, the same goes for setting goals.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not just about having those big dreams, but it's also about understanding the underlying principles that will help you achieve those dreams.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say your goal is to, learn a new language.
Okay.
Instead of just signing up for the first, online course you see,
Right.
you might take a step back and say, well, what are the most effective ways to actually learn a language? What are those key components of language acquisition? And then you would design your learning plan based on those principles.
So I'm being more strategic about how I approach.
Yeah, more thoughtful, more deliberate.
Okay, this has been really fascinating.
Fun.
Yeah, I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on, not just problem solving, but decision making.
Yeah.
And just approaching life in general.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so for our listeners out there, as we kind of start to wrap things up here, what's one thing that they can do today to start applying this in their own lives?
That's a great question. I would say, think about an area in your life where you feel stuck.
Okay.
Or maybe a challenge you're facing.
Yeah.
And instead of just accepting that situation, as it is, ask yourself, why is it this way? What are the underlying assumptions here? Are there alternative approaches that I haven't even considered?
Okay, I like that.
That simple act of questioning can open up a whole world of possibilities.
Great advice. And that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
But the learning doesn't stop here. Keep questioning, keep exploring.
Absolutely.
Keep pushing yourself to think differently.
That's right.
And keep diving deep.
Yes.